So Michael Cudlitz was talking to IMDb show about Glenn's death back in season 7. And of course Michael Cudlitz played Abraham on The Walking Dead. He said that essentially it's a shame that Abraham had to die alongside Glenn in that premiere, and that if he was still around, The Walking Dead would have more humor in it. You know, that Abraham kind of humor, where he kind of like tells things how it is, you know, there's no bullshit, that kind of thing.
Oh honey, look at you. You're a damn mess.
The best example I can think of was the episode when he found the rocket launcher on that broken down truck. Only Abraham could have the best reaction to that. So basically he said, I do think that's what's missing, and that's been on the show, and I think they're getting back to that there's an element of humor, and there's an element of humor that Abraham brought to it. And I agree with him, Abraham would be a welcome addition to the current cast, and give everyone a sense of familiarity with all these time skips. Not to mention, imagine how Eugene and Abraham would develop as characters, knowing that Eugene lied to him all those years ago. I just would have liked to see more of a redemption on Eugene's part in that front. And imagine old Abraham at this point. The actual actor has whitish gray hair, so you would have seen that on the show as well. A nice balance of humor and drama is a good take on a TV show like The Walking Dead, and it's definitely a challenge when you keep getting people like, you know, Alpha and Negan showing up and doing these crazy ass things like the people's heads on the pikes, you know, then the lineup with Negan. So with all that seriousness, you do need to lighten it up. It's very important to have a balance. Not saying Abraham is some kind of goofball character, but he oftentimes has always lightened the mood.
Luckiest guy in the world.
Michael also told them, and I quote, I always said I personally thought it was not the wisest thing to take both Abraham and Glenn out in the same episode. It's too much of a loss for the fans, for the audience. Glenn's like the moral compass and the heart of the show at the same time. Even pulling Rick back, he was almost like the Herschel Whisperer. He'd also become the other side of him that was able to guide him, or at least help guide him. End quote. I know killing Abraham was the show's way of switching things up a bit, you know, not making everything so, I guess, predictable if you read the comics, and just making things not what you expected. But I think it just wasn't necessary in this particular case. I personally get some joy out of seeing things in the comic that you know get translated to the big screen, and I say it's unnecessary specifically because not everyone that watches the show reads the comics, and not everyone is kind of spoiled on how Glenn was going to die, or even if Glenn was going to die. But those of that were spoiled on it still didn't know every detail on how it would happen, or how it's going to play out. Really, it just seemed like a little bit of an overreaction on the showrunner's part. Killing only Glenn would have made the scene a little bit better in the long run, I think. If only by the sole fact that Abraham's death is in the shadow of Glenn's. Half the time I forget Abraham actually died in that episode. I only think of Glenn's death. Really, Rosita and Maggie should feel terrible for what happened, but I keep forgetting that Rosita actually lost someone important there, because Glenn's death was the one everyone was looking forward to, or not looking forward to per se, but was expecting. For season 10, Andrew Lincoln said he's going to be directing, and I'm a bit more excited about that because Rick's actor also had some issues with the way Glenn went out. He said this, we've been able to terrify people in film for 100 years without having to show an eyeball. When that happens, it diminishes what we're trying to make, which in my mind's eye is a family drama set in hell. It's not a sort of B-movie gore fest. And he also said he would have directed that episode a bit differently. My taste is, I think it would have been more disturbing just keeping an eye on Maggie's face. And maybe that's why I want to direct, because I want to make what I've been filming in my head. Now I know it's a very hard decision that the show had to make on whether or not to show Glenn's very, very, very gruesome death, or keep it off screen, and maybe just let those that read the comics get some details on how it actually went down, how bad it really looked. I think either way, you know, it would have worked. They probably would have gotten a backlash for not showing the way it actually happened in the comics. Like, I do on some level appreciate AMC for sticking to the comics on key points like this. They knew what fans wanted. It's hard to know what would have gotten a bigger backlash, because Glenn's gruesome death also had a lot of people file complaints with the FCC for how gory it was. But you know, if Andrew Lincoln does come back direct in season 10, I'm definitely going to be looking out for any kind of like Easter eggs he might throw in that might like tie into Rick, and maybe directing will get him more excited to return for the movies as well, because that's still not exactly set in stone. But in the end, it's interesting to talk about how things could have went to get where we are today. But that's going to be it for this video. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more Walking Dead videos just like this, and thanks for watching.